Welcome to our first Friday night Bard from the Barn show. We are over the moon with how our first week has gone. Thank you so much for tuning into the videos all week. Here tonight, we are going to bring you every single episode. Welcome to our first Friday night Bard from the Barn show. We are over the moon with how our first week has gone. Thank you so much for tuning into the videos all week. Here tonight, we are going to bring you every single episode. Welcome to our first Friday night Bard from the Barn show. We are over the moon with how our first week has gone. Thank you so much for tuning into the videos.
It's been absolutely ridiculous what you, Hal, and the team here at the barn, and Ben, who's sat over there, who's going to chat to you in a bit, how they've been able to pull off this incredible project. The numbers of people you've got involved, the incredible talent from the Barn Theatre, and the amazing stories that you're going to tell out of context, but weirdly it still is in context in a big way, and we're all loving it here. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you're doing.
No worries, we are over the moon to be doing this.
Great, and it is lovely, the fact that we can't have anyone here at the Barn Theatre. We've got empty chairs, nobody walking through the doors, but it still feels like people are getting a little taste of what the Barn Theatre can still do, and what all you wonderful people who aren't able to get on the stage can do just from isolation.
We're a week into the Bard from the Barn now, and we've seen some incredible videos this week. We're over the moon with the content that's come out, and yeah, it's just fun so far. We're seeing some incredible, clever videos. I think, you know, exactly as you said, Johan, the style of this and the fact that people are still working when they're not even in the theatre is just showing the true ingenious of the artist, I think.
Absolutely, and that the brilliance of this is just like how we've seen Shakespeare reimagined through the generations on stage. This is a totally new media, of a way of doing it, and I think I can't wait to see how this just grows in concept, grows in its challenges it presents itself. But we all know that whenever you give the artistic and creative community a challenge, they use that as an opportunity to go bigger and better every single time. So I can't wait just to see this unfold and to see what epic, bat crazy, can't say bat, epic, awesome, ingenious and creative content we'll get.
Well, I am slowly but surely getting drip fed the videos coming through, and some of them just are so funny, but then also some of them are really hard hitting. Like Ben's first one this week, just, you know, absolutely cuts the core of me, just seeing the theatre and its vibrancy, and then all of a sudden just deserted. Are
you allowed to give any hints away at what's coming for people like me? I don't see them until they come out, so I'm like everyone else is out there, just at 10 minutes to 5 o'clock, just waiting for the next one to come. So please just give me a hint. What's coming?
Well, I think as you've seen on Thursday's video, with Tricia's video, we can't assume by character what these videos are going to be. So we are already getting some characters in a way that you would never have seen them before. Nobody has ever seen Hermione in an Only Way is Essex style before. And as the director said to me, he hopes he never does again. So I can assure you we're going to see a lot more of that.
Hey, and we're already getting loads of interest from the critics circle out there. I saw Dom Cavendish had picked it up, saying that he thinks it's genius. So I think I may be elaborating there, but pretty much I'm paraphrasing. Dom Cavendish thinks it's genius.
Well, quite rightly so. I think that the work across the board, from myself and Hal to the actors, to the directors, to the guys at the barn who are in the post-production of this, we're just seeing new levels met every single time. And absolutely, I think we started with a huge video, and I really wanted O for Muse of Fire because I wanted to challenge the audience. I wanted to say to the audience, whatever you think you know about this, throw it out the window, because it's not going to be that. And so to receive that back from the critics straight away is wonderful, because they have no idea what they're in store for.
That's what's so exciting about this. So off you go, have an amazing time. You have you have the reins. Go and
Thank you.
challenge the barn theatres and the audiences beyond the barn. I'm so pleased. Thank you, Aaron.
No worries. So we are actually sitting right now with not only our chief editor, because you are the chief editor. We have a team of editors now. It's phenomenal, but you are our chief editor. You are the one that goes, that is good to go now. We are not just sat with our chief editor, but we are also sat with our first director on Bard from the Barn. And is this your directorial debut, do you think?
I think it might be. I tried to play it cool when we were chatting on the phone, and you were like, "Oh yeah, so I think you better credit the director, which I guess in this case is you." And I was like, "What?" You know, it was cool. It's really cool. It's awesome. I did not expect that credit, but I guess it makes sense, and it was really cool to bring what I do, my visual style and things like that, to this project as a whole. I suppose that's what it's become. It's pretty crazy. It was amazing to kick it off.
I think the thing that that viewers will not know about you is that we as actors who work at the barn, we work with you guys. We see all the work that you put in, but actually. We don't necessarily see all the hours that you put in. And currently you and I are dealing in this daily sort of like update of like, right, where are we at for this video? Where are we at for this video? I need to draft of this. I've got to send it to this person. And one of the things I feel like I'm having to say to you is stop working, go to bed, do this. But the thing is that when I presented this idea to you for this first one, the idea that I had in my head was a version of what you did, but it was in no way on the scale of what you did. And I think that when I had this idea for this project and when I discussed it with Hal, and Hal came on board as a visionary as well, there was only one place that we wanted to do it, and that was the barn. And that's because of all of you guys working there. And obviously, you know, the phenomenal music that was on top there by Harry Smith that we had that was in from Henry V. It was, you know, it was so key to have all these elements and for us to start in this way of saying to the audience, right, this is what we can do. It's not what we've done before. So you're going to have to just go with this concept now. And that's exactly what O for a Muse of Fire is about. And I thought you captured that brilliantly and beautifully. Tell us about some of the images that you shot into there and why you chose those ones.
Sure. So I tend to do a lot of background research. I didn't have that much time, as much time as I'd like, always, right, to work on this one. But the images that I've used for this, I'm trying my damnedest to make every word, especially in the opening of the speech, land with the audience in a way that they relate to. And whether that's, let me see, Oh, for a Muse of Fire. Well, it's basically, it's trying to tell several parallel stories. So it's the story of the barn going along, and it's the story of the world going along, and it's the story of Henry V going along at the same time. So I sort of try to make associations between images of what we're going through personally, what I'm going through personally, because a lot of, you know, that's the easiest, you know, subject, I guess. And what the sort of the image of the barn theatre and the media and things like that, showing what it physically looks like. You know, everything's empty. There's no one here. There's no audience, and also showing, trying to associate that with some news stories, news clippings, and some history as well. I think I threw some. Bertrand Russell, Impact of Science on Society, and a couple of white papers from research labs somewhere, and I think some World Economic Forum footage, something like that. So I'm trying to look at everything that's going on in the world and trying to spin a particular yarn, I suppose.
And fit it all into a couple of minutes, and we can't.
Yeah. It's overload.
Let this
overload.
go by.
The point is information overload, and trying to make sense of that overload, I suppose. And the moments where everything seems too much, and then the moment where everything seems to click as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we can't let this go by without mentioning the gorgeous dulcet tones of Mr. Adam Sopp,
Oh
who
my goodness!
immediately when we and immediately when we discussed this idea of starting with a voiceover, I was like, I know just the guy. And not many people will know this, but and this is a fun little voiceover tidbit, as it were. Adam Sopp is famously the voice of Harry Potter a lot of the time. And if you now watch this video and shut your eyes, just think to yourself that Daniel Radcliffe is bringing you Oh for a Muse of Fire, directed by the marvelous Ben Collins. So without further ado, we're going to kick this show off with a beautiful, beautiful video shot by Ben, soundtracked by Harry Smith and voiced by Adam Sopp / Daniel Radcliffe. Here we go.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then, should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon and gentles all. The flat, unraised spirits that have dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object, can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in little place a million, and let us, ciphers to this great account, on your imaginary forces work. Suppose within the girdle of these walls are now confined two mighty monarchies, whose high upreared and abutting fronts the perilous narrow ocean parts asunder. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts, into 1,000 parts divide one man, and make imaginary puissance. Think when we talk of horses, that you see them, printing their proud hooves in the receiving earth, for 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping o'er times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply, admit me chorus to this history, who prologue like your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play.
Hal Chambers, the legend that is, welcome to Bar from the Barn Friday night. You are a producer on Bar from the Barn. You are a director on Bar from the Barn. And so far this week, we have seen some of your excellent work with a terrific actor in your video. I mean, who that guy was, he is the next Olivier. I cannot even explain. Welcome to Friday night, Bar from the Barn.
Yeah, Hal, it's great to see you again. I can't believe the Henry V dream team has just assembled again for this. I think we did something special last year, and it feels right to be continuing it. You know, it's really cool. I'm over the moon.
Well, look, it's great to be back, guys. It's great to get the band back together. But yeah, it's thrilling to get these stories, these characters put into the lockdown and to see how they deal with it.
Definitely. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because we discovered it with Henry V, and just after Henry V, I actually came and saw a production of yours of Julius Caesar. So I know you are a man for politics when it comes to these Shakespeare plays. So I was wondering if you could talk to us about some of the politics you see kind of behind Julius Caesar, particularly with a character like Mark Antony.
Well, yes, Mark Antony, I think, is a bit of a career politician. He is very faithful to Caesar, who is very, very powerful, and by some factions seems to be way, way too powerful. And so there is a question in Roman politics in this play about has he got too much power, and should we nullify him? Now, nullify in this instance means a brutal assassination. But if we were to think about the kind of politics that were lurking around the times of Brexit in the last few years, the amount of backstabbing and the amount of people who've just been fired, taken out, basically. And Boris was doing this way before coronavirus. He was just a few weeks ago, he was merrily just clearing people out who didn't agree with him and sacking people in top ministerial jobs. So I think at the time of making that Julius Caesar, I was very interested in the idea of backstabbing and a kind of inter-party politics, if that makes sense. And I think Mark Antony sees this opportunity when his friend Caesar is killed by Brutus and Cassius and their associates. He realizes that he can turn this awful situation into political gain. And of course, with every political vacuum, people can come out of it smelling of roses. And I think this is what Mark Antony does. He comes in this famous scene in front of the Roman people, and he presents this argument that perhaps maybe Caesar wasn't worth killing after all. But before he can get to that point, and the scene that we focus on in Bar from the Barn, we see Mark Antony slippery using his rhetoric to get the Roman people on side and present the idea of Brutus as an honourable man. But is he an honourable man? And that word honourable becomes really, really key. And are our politicians today honourable? Are they acting in the ways they should? Across the world, there is a lot of pretty crooked politicians, a lot of people who at the moment must be very nervous because this virus has shown just how badly they were planning for any kind of pandemic. And some of the dodgy deals going on behind closed doors, it doesn't look good for a lot of them. And right now we need strong politicians, but perhaps there's too many of them, a bit like Mark Antony with a sort of a quicksilver tongue who can sway us.
We see quite a modern use of sort of sloganeering or NLP, repeating this phrase, Brutus was an honourable man. I think, Aaron putting that across in a very modern way,
yeah.
In the way you just expect to see it on the TV.
That's his get Brexit done. That's his, strong and stable government. Brutus is an honourable man. And what you're trying to do is hammer home an idea. But of course, here he's being ironic, but he can't show that he is. So he's acting. He's telling the truth through lies. And of course, he is brilliant if the scene carries on after this. And he never once says that they are murderers. He just lets them decide. And that's what great politicians do. So I think Mark Antony's a very, very clever man. But what are his true desires? Probably a bit more power. But he did feel the loss, I think, greatly of his friend. So it's a very interesting speech. Do we buy it? And does he really feel the death of his friend that keenly? I think the answer is it's not straightforward. It's messy. And that's what's great about Shakespeare. He doesn't write heroes and villains, not in these political plays, not in these Roman plays. We are in that moment thinking, would we back Mark Antony or not? Or do we back Brutus? It's a tough one.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes a character like Mark Antony so interesting, because on the surface, he looks like he's just that good guy. And you've got Brutus, who's, this torn and conflicted character. And then you've just got Mark Antony. And actually, as when we discussed this, we spoke about Mark Antony's manipulation of this situation and of the hearts and minds of those involved. And I think it was fantastic. So without any further ado, let's check out the work that you and I did, mate. Hal, we've got a lot more to expect from you with Bar from the Barn. We cannot wait to see the other two that you have currently under construction, as it were. But I'm sure we'll be seeing loads and loads and loads of your work as we continue on. So cheers, thanks for coming on today, and let's check out the work that you and I did earlier this week.
Thanks so much, Hal.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it was a grievous fault.
and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honourable man. So are they all honourable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honourable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious, when that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept? Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honourable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which thrice he did refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure he is an honourable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am, to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? Oh, judgment! Thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me.
Dom, welcome to Friday night, Bard from the Barn.
The first Friday night.
The first Friday night. You are a debutante. First and foremost, as a fellow actor, we all dream of playing the Dane. So how was it for you playing the Dane?
Well, I'm lucky because I played the Dane before. So that's something. But getting to do it for this project is obviously is a great privilege, because personally, when the call went out for actors to do Shakespeare monologues, it was the first thing I thought of. I mean, it's kind of obvious that there is no more isolated or lonely character in the canon, I think, and so to get the chance to do it for this project is great. It's as I say, it's a privilege. Well,
you did a phenomenal job, and it was our privilege to have our first Hamlet be you. So as you just said there, this character is an extremely isolated character, and is certainly struggling with a lot of concepts that I think people will be battling with right now. Did you struggle in any way to sort of contextualize this to the lockdown scenario, or was it something that just came really easily?
No, I mean, as I say, it occurred to me instantly as a choice of speech to perform. In terms of the concept, I had some conversations with Kirstie. We talked about it, our first meeting, the director. We discussed what the best setting would be, and her great innovation and her great input for me was to make it as claustrophobic as possible. So the outside being as beautifully sunny and blue and idyllic as possible, but inside being very tight shots, and the sense of being trapped was a key.
It's very dark indoors too, and what I love is that you can see the outdoors the whole time, whatever you're indicating to. You're looking out of this window, seeing this amazing world, and explaining exactly to us why it sucks, basically.
Right, and I mean that's an amazing thing about the speech in itself. And it blows my mind a bit that Shakespeare was writing over 400 years ago and understood things that we take for granted, and maybe things that we maybe don't think that the Elizabethans or anyone back then would have conceived of. Yeah. But of course, that's one of the great things about Shakespeare. He speaks, to all generations, and
they call Hamlet the first modern man, don't they?
Right, yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, he's a great thinker. Perhaps he thinks too much. Yeah, that's a problem, obviously.
I think right there you hit the nail on the head of what this vision that we have is about, and it is about kind of saying, as Baz Luhrmann did so brilliantly, I think, with Romeo and Juliet. Certainly, Hal, the other producer on this project, said to me that movie changed his life. He had no interest in Shakespeare before he saw that version of the movie.
Right.
And so with us bringing this now, we're now in a situation that I don't think anybody's ever been in before, where we are all living exactly the same thing for the first time in our lifetimes, and probably our parents' lifetimes.
Right.
And so take the canon and put it now is something that we can all relate to this right now. And I think you put that beautifully with your speech. And so without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and we are going to watch this speech now. Dom, you did fantastic work on this, and we really look forward to what you're going to do for us next with Bard from the Barn.
Me too. That'd be great. Yeah.
Thanks, Dom. Great to speak to you.
Wonderful.
Thanks, mate.
Super work, mate. Thanks very much.
Yes.
I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises. And indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave, o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, why, it appeareth no other thing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapours. What a piece of work is a man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world. The paragon of animals. And yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me.
So our next guest has not broken lockdown rules. I assure you, she does actually already live here. She has not just decided to wander in for a face-to-face interview, even though we're not really face-to-face, we're sort of side by side.
Cheek to cheek.
Trisha, we haven't just watched. We are going to watch it after this. We are going to watch your Hermione. Now, you have predominantly had a musical theatre career, particularly right now. You have been working in the West End on an unnamed show for rights issues, probably. So, how did you find working on Shakespeare for what has been? I mean, I'm going to act like I don't know, but I don't really know why. For what has been the first time since you left drama school?
Yeah. I'll be honest. I think I had to put quite a lot of work into it. I watched the play, and then I found out ways of making the monologue completely nothing to do with the original play, make it completely about the situation that we're in and how perhaps this character that I'm doing might. Oh, was that Russ? No.
Oh, Ben. Sorry, to those viewers at home that didn't see that, Ben was sort of doing a wavy thing that made me think something had gone wrong. So we're going to go back to Tricia. Live.
Sorry, did I distract you? I'm so sorry.
I thought you were going, stop.
You're going, stop.
It's rubbish.
Okay, I just signaled to. I said to Chris, put me in shot because it's. Because I wanted it to look a bit like a podcast chat show. But anyway, sorry.
So, but as you were saying, because this is one of the things I was discussing with you, Anne, just before we started getting guests on and started watching speeches. Some of these speeches are not anything like how they would be if they just appeared in a play. For example, in The Winter's Tale, Hermione delivering this speech is not comedic. However, you and the wonderful Joe Pitcher, who is your director, who we have lots more work coming up from, you guys decided on a slightly different vision for The Winter's Tale. So why don't you tell me how we came onto that?
Okay, so the original concept of this speech is Hermione in the dock defending herself to her husband, the king, and all and sundry, saying that she hasn't done the thing she's accused of, and she's defending herself in a very respectful and well-worded way. Our version is trial by media. So it's how people affected by the newspapers and the on Twitter, trial by Twitter, trial by Instagram, and all those kind of things, how they react to that. And in lockdown, when you can't speak to the person face to face, what do? You post a video on social media defending your actions or denying your actions. And that's how we brought it into the lockdown context and the modern context.
Well, I think that leads us nicely into going and watching the speech. So this is Hermione from The Winter's Tale, directed by the lovely Joe Pitcher and performed by a very, very beautiful actress who I'm sure we'll see a lot more of on this production.
Since what I am to say must be but that which contradicts my accusation, and the testimony on my part no other but what comes from myself, it shall scarce boot me to say not guilty. Mine integrity, being counted falsehood, shall, as I express it, be so received. But thus, if powers divine behold our human actions as they do, I doubt not then that innocence shall make false accusation blush and tyranny tremble at patience. You, my lord, best know, who least will seem to do so, my past life hath been as continent, as chaste, as true as I am now unhappy, which is more than history can pattern, though devised and played to take spectators. For behold, me, a fellow of the royal bed, which our moiety of the throne, a great king's daughter, the mother to a hopeful prince, here standing to pray and talk for life and honour for rude police to come and hear. For life, I prize it as I weigh grief, which I would spare. For honour, 'tis a derivative of me to mine, and only that I stand for. I appeal to your own conscience, sir. Before Polixenes came to your court, how I was in your grace, how unmerited to be so. Since he came, with what encounter so uncurrent, I have strained to appear thus. If one jot beyond the bounds of honour, or in act or will, that way inclining, hardens be the art of all that hear me, and my nearest of kin cry fie upon my grave.
Right, a huge welcome to Rob Forknall, who is joining us. Rob is not part of the Bard from the Barn, not part of the Barn team. He's certainly part of the Bard from the Barn team. But Rob, as many people won't know, you are an artistic director of a theatre company that specialises in open air Shakespeare in the summer. So how has this pandemic, apart from the obvious way, how has this pandemic affect you and your theatre company?
Well, we've been doing open air Shakespeare for 20 years this year. It would have been our 20th year. We had a whole summer lined up with Midsummer Night's Dream going on tour. The biggest impact is it's not happening. So that is that's the biggest impact I could say. And for me personally, when I wasn't doing the show, 20 years, been doing it 20 years, when I wasn't doing that, I was in Edinburgh Festival doing shows for 3 years leading up to that. And so it's going to be weird having a free summer. I don't know. What do people do? It's like, because I also do panto, so I don't know what people do at Christmas, normal people. And I don't know what normal people do in the summer. So if anyone's got any clues, if they could just email me and tell me what you do with your summers. That'd be great.
Well, I've worked with you. Many people might not know that, but I've worked with you. We're both from Maidstone, and we did Romeo and Juliet together. And one of the things I know about you as a director is how involved you love to be with your company, and how important it is for you to have a huge company feel when you're doing a show. So, how have you found directing in this kind of format? It must be mad.
Also did panto together as well, Aaron, didn't we?
Of course we did.
That's how we met. How Big's Your Fish, if I think I remember. That was great. But isn't it interesting? It's really interesting doing this. I've never done this before like this. It's new for all of us. But it's really very strange because it's so one-to-one that you're doing the same thing as you would do in a room one-to-one when you're working on the script. So working on the script is very, very similar. You're still working on the intention. You're making sure the actors know the speed and the tempo of the speech, making sure they know what they're saying. So there's all of that that's going on. And then you just have to leave them to it. So and then they come back and show you, and you note them, and then they go away and do the final product. And it's sort of it's much more hands off, I think, than doing the actual show, because it's not just you; it's up to the editors who do. I've seen the 3 episodes we've got already, beautifully edited, some fantastic work going on there. It's up to the actors to film it, and so it's them filming it. You can't sit there and go, "I think you should do that a bit more. I think you should do that a bit more." It's up to the actors to direct themselves, and that's the point of view. So it's really sort of guiding them through the text and making sure the intention is there and the meaning behind the text is there, which is what we sort of do in part of the rehearsal. So it's like the finished product is more to do with the actor and the editor. I think that's very different.
What did you think, Rob?
Why there's been such a huge kind of emphasis on having Ben as part of this. So Ben here is our editor. Ben and Harry does the sound edit. But yeah, there's such a huge kind of input from their point of view and from the vision that they have. So Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting to see Steve's concept come through, as well as his footage. Rob, you must have seen, I don't know what you felt when you saw Stephen's footage come through after you worked on it. I love Steve's concept. I think the ideas that you guys developed of clapping, that's obviously a current story at the moment. All the World being a stage, and bringing those topics into this project, this piece is pretty inspired, to be honest. And the way Steve spoke to me when I spoke to him briefly was really cool to hear. And this time of recording, there's still some work to be done getting that finished, but we hope you like the final product when it comes out, glitches and all.
Good. I really look forward to seeing it. Yeah, it'd be fun.
And so with that in mind, we are now going to go ahead and we are going to watch Stephen Omer giving his All the World's a Stage, directed by the lovely Rob Forknall. Rob, we have so much more of your work to come with Bar from the Barn, and from the bottom of my heart, just such a huge thank you to how involved you have been in this production, and just how you've given it just your all for a theatre that you don't yet have any affiliation with, but we really hope that changes in the future. So here is All the World's a Stage.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths, and bearded like the pard, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe, and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shack, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends his strange eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.